A shocking clue may have just changed everything we thought we knew about the Ashford family tree. Something isn't adding up anymore regarding the patriarch of the family, Marshall, and the sudden aggressive shift in his dynamics is setting off massive alarm bells. Let us look at the exact detail that is triggering this massive investigation. Marshall is making his return to Port Charles. But if you are expecting the soft-spoken grandfather who just wants everyone to gather around the table and get along, you are in for a very rude awakening. Marshall is coming back with a level of tension, hostility, and unyielding firmness that we have rarely, if ever, seen from him. He is drawing a massive line in the sand, and the target of his absolute fury is none other than his own son, Curtis. The clue here is the ultimatum that Marshall is delivering. Marshall is demanding that Curtis reconcile with Isaiah. He is no longer offering soft fatherly advice. He is no longer trying to mediate with gentle words or understanding nods. Marshall is laying down the absolute law. Curtis must take responsibility, swallow his massive ego, and fix the fractured situation with Isaiah, or Marshall is walking away forever. He is ready to completely sever the father-son relationship if Curtis refuses to comply. Why is Marshall suddenly so utterly uncompromising? That is a massive shift in his character. Curtis is a man who builds fortresses around his heart, a man who demands loyalty because he has been abandoned too many times in his life. For Marshall, the man who abandoned Curtis for decades under the guise of a misdiagnosed mental illness, to return and threaten to abandon him again over a feud with Isaiah is staggering. Marshall is essentially saying that family is no longer about unconditional love. It is about accountability, and if Curtis cannot step up, Marshall is done. But guys, that is only half of the clue. The second, and far more explosive, part of this puzzle is who Marshall is bringing to town with him, a young man named Quinn. Now, let us start connecting the dots, because this is where the picture gets incredibly twisted and dark. Who exactly is Quinn? If you have been paying attention to the history of Port Charles, that name should immediately send a shiver down your spine, especially when you think about Trina. Quinn is the very same person who fiercely clashed with Trina in the past over the devastating injury of Kai. Their history is incredibly toxic, filled with deep animosity, bitter blame, and screaming matches that left emotional scars. Quinn was a major antagonist in Trina's life during that incredibly dark and stressful chapter. Trina thought she had left that toxicity in the rearview mirror. Now, Marshall is bringing him into the fold, and here is the absolute jaw dropper. Marshall has confirmed that Quinn is his grandson. Yes, you heard that correctly. The very guy who made Trina's life a living nightmare, the guy she went toe-to-toe with over Kai's tragic situation, is her own flesh and blood. He is her cousin. If this detail is true, it changes the entire landscape of Trina's world in an instant. Trina has absolutely no idea that her former bitter rival shares her bloodline. It may not be a coincidence that Marshall is bringing Quinn into the picture at the exact moment he is threatening to disown Curtis. Think about the psychological warfare happening here. If Marshall is willing to throw Curtis away, is he bringing Quinn in as a replacement? A new legacy to focus on? Something feels off about the timing of all this. Why now? Why bring a known enemy of Trina into the family sanctuary unless there is a much larger, darker agenda at play? Marshall knows how much Trina means to Curtis. Bringing the boy who tormented her into their home is a calculated move. It is a statement of power. This brings us to the massive theory that could blow the roof off of General Hospital. The bigger question is, who exactly are Quinn's parents? Marshall has allegedly confirmed that Quinn is his grandson, but the true identity of Quinn's mother and father remains a heavily guarded, absolute secret. There may be more to this story than just a long-lost relative showing up for a tense family reunion. If you ask me, this is where things become interesting, and where the Ashford family history might be rewritten in the most painful way possible. Let us look closely at the Ashford family tree. We know about Curtis, and we know about his deceased brother, Tommy. Is Quinn the secret son of Tommy? If Tommy is the father, the implications are staggering. Why was Quinn kept hidden for his entire life? Did Tommy have a secret life before he died? And more importantly, did Marshall know about Quinn this whole time? If Marshall knew he had another grandson out there and kept it a secret from Curtis while they were supposedly rebuilding their trust, Curtis will never forgive him. But let us go even darker, because in Port Charles, the truth is always more sinister than we first imagine. What if Quinn isn't Tommy's son at all? What if Marshall, during his decades on the run, those painful years, he claimed he stayed away to protect his family due to a misdiagnosed schizophrenia, had another child, another family entirely? If Quinn is the son of a secret sibling Curtis never knew existed, that would completely destroy Curtis's understanding of his father's ultimate sacrifice. It would mean Marshall's entire narrative of staying away out of noble protection was a lie, or at least a convenient half-truth, covering up another family he was actively raising while abandoning Curtis and Tommy to fend for themselves. This could explain a lot about why Marshall is suddenly so aggressive and willing to cut Curtis off without a second thought. Maybe Marshall has realized he doesn't need Curtis because he has another family line that doesn't constantly disappoint him, question him, or challenge his authority. Maybe Marshall is tired of walking on eggshells around Curtis and is ready to embrace the family he kept hidden in the shadows. If this theory holds true, the aftermath will be nothing short of catastrophic for everyone involved, leaving a trail of broken hearts and shattered alliances. Think about the immense psychological toll this will take on Trina. She is already dealing with the immense pressure of her upcoming premiere, trying to keep her focus sharp while navigating the usual Port Charles drama. On top of that, her mother, Portia, is going into a difficult labor, adding a massive layer of life or death anxiety to Trina's plate. Now, imagine her walking into Kelly's or the Savoy, exhausted and emotionally drained, only to see Quinn, the person who tormented her over Kai's injury, standing there. And then imagine the absolute horror of being told, surprise, this is your cousin. It will absolutely break her. Trina values family, honesty, and loyalty above everything else. And discovering that her grandfather brought her enemy into her home will feel like the ultimate betrayal. She will feel entirely unsafe in her own family circle. And what about Curtis? Curtis is a man whose entire identity is built on his pride, his need for control, and his hard-fought relationships. If Marshall cuts him off over the Isaiah situation, Curtis loses the father he spent his whole life longing for and finally thought he understood. But if Curtis also finds out that Marshall has been hiding another grandson, or worse, a completely secret child, Curtis's entire world will implode. He will lose everything that grounds him. The Savoy, his marriage to Portia, his delicate relationship with Trina, it could all suffer as Curtis spirals into a dark, inescapable place of betrayal and boiling anger. Who benefits from this massive fallout? Perhaps Quinn. Quinn stands to inherit the grandfatherly love, the financial resources, and perhaps the family legacy that Curtis is about to lose. Quinn might be playing a very calculated game, using Marshall's sudden anger at Curtis to slide right into the Ashford family throne. Furthermore, we have to consider Portia's reaction to all of this. Portia is fiercely protective of Trina and her family unit. She is currently facing a terrifying medical crisis with her difficult labor, and we know Isaiah Gannon might be the one who has to step in and deliver her baby if she cannot make it to General Hospital in time. If Isaiah saves Portia and the baby, he becomes a hero to the family. This makes Marshall's demand that Curtis reconcile with Isaiah even more loaded. If Curtis refuses to make peace with the man who potentially saves his wife's life, Curtis will look like an absolute monster. Portia will not stand for Curtis's stubbornness if it disrespects the man who saved her. And when Portia finds out that Marshall brought Quinn, the boy who caused Trina so much pain, into their lives, she will go to war. The Ashford family will fracture into warring factions, with Trina and Portia on one side, Marshall and Quinn on another, and Curtis completely isolated in the middle of the wreckage. We may be looking at the beginning of something huge, guys. The truth could be closer than anyone realizes, and the fallout is going to leave permanent, jagged scars on the Ashford family that no amount of time or apologies will ever heal. Someone may not be ready for what's coming next, and my bet is that Curtis and Trina are entirely unprepared for the absolute storm Marshall is dragging into Port Charles. Keep your eyes peeled, because every single conversation Marshall has from this point forward, every subtle look Quinn gives Trina across a crowded room, and every stubborn refusal from Curtis is going to be loaded with hidden meaning. The chessboard has been reset, and the pieces are moving in ways that will leave us all breathless.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.